And showtime. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest episode of the ChannelPro 5-Minute Roundup. Look at news, trends, and tips for the SMB channel in 5 minutes or thereabouts. My name is Rich Freeman. I am executive editor of the ChannelPro Network. I'm also one of your co-hosts on this program. And I'm joined this week, as every week, by my co-host, Erick Simpson, a business transformation and improvement consultant for MSPs and other IT providers. Erick, I know you're not home, and you look like you're in a casual mood here today. What's going on?
I am in a casual mood, Rich, and I am not at home. I'm on our yearly Park City family vacation in Utah. We did a little snowmobiling, we did a little skiing, and a lot of decompressing. So coming at you from the cold landscape of Utah, United States.
What a trooper here. You could have taken the week off, but you didn't want our audience to have to go a week and wait. I appreciate that. Oh,
Yep,
look at
here's my son's ski helmet. So he's they're out in downtown right now having a little lunch while you and I conduct yet another fantastic episode of the ChannelPro 5-Minute Roundup.
And don't you wish you had all those layers that I was wearing last week on the show in Park City?
Could have used them this week, Rich. So we'll have to coordinate better next time.
Well, let's dive into this week's news. The top story actually just broke last night. We're recording this on a Friday. I got word about it last night and wrote about it this morning on ChannelProNetwork.com. It is the somewhat surprising, actually extremely surprising news that Renee Bergeron, the Senior Vice President of Global Cloud Channel at Ingram Micro, has decided to leave the company. She is going to be pursuing a new opportunity at another company. We don't know what that is. I'm sure at some point in time when she's good and ready, she will let us know where she has landed. But she will be leaving Ingram Micro today. February 14th is in fact her last day at the company. She's been there for about 10 years, and they were really a pivotal 10 years. You go back in time 10 years, and Ingram Micro, like its other big competitors, Synex and Tech Data in particular, but Arrow and the rest of them as well, they were all really still in that pick, pack, and ship era of distribution. They were all about shrink-wrapped product. And they could absolutely see that the industry was changing all around them, and that cloud in particular was going to be the next big thing in IT. The question was, how were they going to adapt to these changes, and would they be able to do that? And each of the big distributors has decided to pursue a somewhat different path. The path Ingram went down was very, very closely oriented towards cloud. They decided that they were going to be the biggest, best, most comprehensive cloud software distributor in the business. And they went out, they spent $500 million on acquisitions to come up with tools and value-added distributors who brought technology and customers with them. They built this giant platform with all those piece parts that they now call Cloud Blue. They created this entire cloud marketplace infrastructure that allows their partners to create marketplaces that they can point to their customers for ordering apps and stuff. They built an entire, really rather impressive cloud business. And Renee was very much involved, very much at the heart of that hugely strategic effort for the company. Now, in terms of what happens from here, Nimesh Dave, who's the Executive Vice President of Global Cloud, is staying at the company. So they're going to essentially split up Renee Bergeron's responsibility. She had global responsibilities. Nimesh will take over for the European region, and Tim Fitzgerald, who reported to Renee before, is going to take over her responsibilities for Cloud Channel in the Americas and the Asia Pacific region. So there is a plan in place. They are, promising continuity and so on. But for me, the main reason I wanted to make this the top story of the week on the show here is just that it really is kind of a good moment to step back and look at how far the big distributors have come in this last decade in terms of retooling their business for an entirely different era of IT. And they've each actually really been very successful at it in different ways. And in the case of Ingram Micro, at least, somebody who played an instrumental role in that transition process is now moving on to the next phase of her career. So kind of a fitting moment to take a step back and look at how much the distribution space has changed in a decade.
Yes, and we wish Renee well. I mean, one of the things that strikes me, Rich, is not only was she kind of at the tip of the spear in this entire, overhaul and reorg and refocusing and tremendous kind of a, position of leadership with the cloud, and some would say at the forefront of the other competitive distributors. She was also a very well respected female entrepreneur in the channel, a leader in the channel that happened to be female. And I just wanted to recognize that we have so few female innovators in the channel. So that is one thing that I'm certain that Ingram will miss is, from that diversity perspective, having a female in a very prominent leadership role that was getting things done and moving the needle for, the channel and vendors and partners and strategic relationships.
Yeah, it's a really great point, actually, and just one more reason why we will be very interested to see what her next step is. I'm sure, as I said before, when she's good and ready to tell the world about it, we'll find out what she's decided to do next. But one hopes that she's going to remain in the industry, and we'll continue to have that kind of leadership role, if not at Ingram, then certainly within the channel.
Yeah, we hope so. I mean, she's very effective. So I'm sure wherever she lands, she'll have the same type of positive impact.
Well, let's take a step onto your tip of the week, Eric. And so many of the people who are watching right now are probably focused most of the time on finding a way to say yes to their customers, but you want them to think about maybe some of the merits attached to saying no.
Absolutely, Rich. I think this was one of the early lessons that I learned from another mentor in the channel that taught me two things. The first thing they said was, let's stick to the tip of the week. I'll save the second tip for another tip of the week. So we'll leave everyone with anticipation here. But the probably the most impactful thing that they taught me was there comes a tipping point in building a business where you go from the day-to-day and maybe hitting some roadblocks and some hitting some growth plateaus, and there's a tipping point that occurs that allows you to get past that. And he said that occurs when you, as a business owner, are able to say no to a prospect, able to say no to a client, because at that point you're in a position where you're past scrabbling to pay the keep the lights on and things like that. You are now at a maturity level that allows you now to pick and choose not only what you will do for clients, but the clients that you will work with. And I really wasn't at a place to appreciate at that point when they were sharing that with me. But shortly thereafter, I was in a situation with a prospect, and the prospect just wanted us to kind of work outside of our box of expertise. This was when I was still running our MSP practice, and I thought about what they said, and I knew that this was one of those pivotal moments where I could have said yes and done something that really was a little bit outside of our norm and probably wouldn't have really made the profit margins that we wanted. We would have had to have learned different different techniques to support this one-off client. And I said no. And I cringed when I was doing it, but I professionally thanked them for the opportunity and left. And reflecting on it afterwards and talking to some of the staff and the team, they all said yes, that was the right decision to say no. And the first one's tough, but I tell you what, Rich, every time thereafter when I was trying to make a strategic decision, it was much easier for me to say no. And in some cases, it was based on price with existing clients or prospects, and saying no, we're not going to be able to do it for that. And that kind of takeaway close actually enabled us to achieve the rates or the project price or the things that we actually wanted in order to maintain our margins. So it works in a lot of different beneficial ways. So, and of course, my technicians and engineers were always wanting us to say no. So I was, kind of earning some brownie points on their side when we did that. But I did see a tremendous change in everyone's mindset at that point. And even from a sales professional's perspective, looking for ways to say yes, but also looking for the red flags that would prevent us from either, satisfying a client and exceeding expectations and delighting them, or meeting our, minimum profit margin targets that we would not go below, or just any other things that would come up that would cause us to kind of work outside of our box of efficiency.
This reminds me, as you're talking about this, I'm getting a little nostalgic because I'm thinking back to the very first time that we met, which was by phone in the earliest days of managed services. And I was interviewing you about your MSP business, which I think you were out of at that time. You were consulting, but only for a little while at that point. And you spoke at that time about a different way. I'm putting a slightly different spin on your point, but you talked about a different way of saying no to your customers, this concept that your clients are probably very familiar with, of sorting your customers into the A customers, the B customers, and the C customers. And the C customers are the ones who cost you a lot of money and don't make you a lot of money, and really you need to be getting rid of those customers. It's a different way to say no, basically. When your business gets to that point, as you said, when you pass that tipping point where you can afford to dump clients who are not, in those A or B categories, it's a different way of saying no, and just as beneficial and liberating.
Yeah, I think, from that perspective, what we're talking about is, we all have, A, B, and C customers, because, at the beginning when we're building our businesses, yes, we say yes to a lot of things that, later on we probably, realize we shouldn't have said, but at that time it made sense. But, the strategy there is, over time, you bring on enough A clients, the clients that you want to work with, saying no to the C customers, where you can replace those C customers over time. If they don't want to grow with you, and it happens both ways, right, Rich? Sometimes, we outgrow our clients or our customers, and other times our clients kind of outgrow us, right? So in our early business building, I remember losing clients because we just, they were outpacing our ability to keep up with them strategically and technically and things like that, because we were, not at that maturity level. So it works both ways. And it's okay, on both sides. If your client outgrows you, then that just means you got to get to work. And if you want to work with those types of clients, you have to build that, that competency and that capability. And that's what, we do over time. But it's also okay when you outgrow your customers and they just do not want to move forward with you in areas of security or the cloud or managed services, and are costing you more money because you're one-offing the service to them because they're in some kind of grandfather relationship with you for 15 years. I've had those, those tough discussions with those customers. And the way that we've addressed it is, I try to find someone else that will take that business, right? Rather than just cutting them off at the kneecaps and saying, thanks for, those years where you really helped us build our business, but yeah, we don't want your business anymore, right? So there's tact, and there's loyalty on both sides. So there's a lot of, angles to that.
Very interesting topic, and I will be curious to hear the other insight. We'll save that for another show. Got another piece of wisdom from the same source. We'll talk about that later. But for this week, we have time for just one more story. And as I'm sure most of the people in our audience know, extended support for Windows 7 ended earlier this year, just last month in January, as a matter of fact. Hardware manufacturers and channel pros, they're probably pretty happy about this because this really pushed a whole PC refresh wave. People were selling and buying a whole lot of new PCs out there. If you like Windows 10, it's easy to imagine there are a lot of end users who are happy about this because they're getting this shiny new operating system, maybe with some new capabilities in it. Nobody's actually asked Windows 7 if it's happy about this deal, and there's at least some evidence Windows 7 is not happy about that deal. Just within the last week or so, reports have begun to surface that a lot of Windows 7 users out there are finding that they can't actually shut the operating system off. They attempt all the usual ways to turn their PC off, and by golly, Windows 7 just won't shut down. It's got a death grip on those PCs. As we like to refer to it here at ChannelPro, this is Windows 7 Zombie Edition, and maybe an indicator that the Windows 7 code out there is not quite ready to go into that long night.
I think I just think Windows 7 becomes sentient now, and that's what is the beginning of the end. Because Skynet and all that good stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. There's just in the last couple of weeks now there was an update to Windows 10 recently, also, Rich, that I'm reading about that is having a lot of challenges with folks not completing the update and doing all kinds of weird things. So Microsoft's getting a little bit of a black eye in the last week or so.
Yeah, the patching and updates, everybody's favorite. Interesting. That is all the time we have this week for you on the ChannelPro 5-Minute Roundup, though we will be back again next week, of course. If you like the show, you want to maybe take a look at some episodes you didn't catch in the past, you want to keep up on new episodes as they become available, thing to do is go to the ChannelPro Network channel on YouTube and subscribe. Make sure you click the little bell icon there if you want to get notifications when new episodes go up. To read more about Renee Bergeron and Ingram Micro and other developments in the news, get business growth strategies, place to go is channelpronetwork.com. There is tremendous new content for you going up there every day. To learn more about Erick and the work that he does with his clients, your destination should be ericksimpson.com. That is ERICK Simpson.com. So we will be back again next week with another episode. Erick's got to go hit the slopes right now here one more time. But until then, folks, please enjoy the rest of your week. Erick and I are enjoying the rest of your week already.